You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie and Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Relatable. I'm your host, Stephanie Michele. Feeling really good today, really good. I have to tell you about my experience coming here. I had the most amazing Uber driver, and I'm going to give him a total shout out. And I loved our conversation. He was warm and smiley from the minute that I got in the car. And what was fun about it is he's got a really long last name. It's a 4-syllable last name. And he really challenged me. He's like, just try. I think you can pronounce it. Try. And so his first name, is Olantabazan. And when I said it, he's like, you got it. You did it. And he was commending me for even trying. He's from Nigeria. And we just had this delightful conversation about how people are showing up in the world and what's going on, and just it was amazing. We're really connected, and it was nice, And I talk a lot about grace on the show, about like just kind of experiencing people in the right moment in time and feeling inspired by them, and that happened this morning, and I'm grateful for that because I haven't been feeling that lately. If you guys remember what I was talking about last week, going through this transition about just around relating and giving people a chance, but also knowing my boundaries and, and understanding what that looks like when I'm helping others do the same. So there's a little bit of a pause that I'm taking right now, and it was nice to have the inspiration. And leading into today's show, I don't know anybody right now that's not experiencing some sort of anxiety. And you might say, well, Stephanie, that's your bubble, your friends, that's just you. And, I would challenge you by saying, well, maybe people in your circle are not talking about it, because there's a lot of that going on too. Like, we're feeling something, but we're not talking about it. There's a lot happening in the world right now, and the attempts to normalize it and say everything's okay is what's causing the anxiety. Like, we actually need to talk about these things. It's about the worst thing that you could do for yourself is to feel something is not okay and not be able to talk about it. So sooner or later it catches up with you. It might catch up with you as a stomach ache or a massive headache, or you're not sleeping, or you find yourself just abnormally emotional or triggered by something in a conversation or with a friend that wasn't there before, and you're just not sure where it's coming from. So always on my show, and always what I'm trying to promote here is that we just slow down, we pay attention, and we really try to connect with each other, and we're curious. We ask questions. We ask our friends and family, like, hey, are you okay? Like, what do you want to talk about? It's actually the greatest gift that you can do, to reach out to someone and check in with them, and it's great to receive that as well. To be seen and heard always, although someone else, to be seen and heard is the greatest gift. Is the greatest thing that you can experience and the greatest gift that you can give to someone else. So I don't think we as a society have a problem with sharing information. We've got a lot of things going on in terms of the social norms of social media that allow us to share and self-promote, but we might need a little help in the listening side of things. Like, we're not really experiencing that enough, and we need to practice that. So we're going to be talking about listening on the show all day on the show or for the show. But before I do that, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to deliver a heart swell at the beginning of the show to my friend Maria in Chicago. Maria and I had an awesome conversation last night, and really soul cleansing, just amazing. I love you, Maria. I'm so blessed to feel supported by our friendship and have you in my life, and I'm blessed to be on your journey and have you with me as well. And I just love you so much. And it was just amazing to connect with you over the things that we were talking about last night. Some of them were very deep, and some of them were quite silly. And I needed both of those conversations to happen. So I love you. Big shout out to Maria in Chicago. And now that brings me to my guest and what we're going to be talking about today. I've hinted that we're going to be talking about listening. So my guest today is Traci Ruble, who is a marriage and family therapist. She's the CEO and founder of Psych and Psych Magazine and the managing director of Sidewalk Talk. Now, Sidewalk Talk is a community listening project with the mission to help heal what divides us through the fine art of skilled listening. Awesome.
Thank you.
It's so awesome. I wouldn't say I stalked you on social media, but when I found out about Sidewalk Talk, I'm like, oh my God, I have to have someone from this organization on the show because it's definitely something that, I feel very connected to without even knowing the details about the project.
Yeah. So it makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how the right people are getting on this train, and the community of listeners that we have now are I do want to give a shout out because I am not building this thing alone. Yeah. There's 700 of us.
Wow.
And the entire tribe is completely making this thing work. And I think that the community that's being built seems really in alignment with what you stand for, Stephanie, in terms of authentic communication. And I'd like to say that the work that we do, sitting out and listening on public sidewalks, is the best part, but the community on the back end for me is the best part.
I have more questions to ask about that. I'm going to come back to that, but I also want to do something that I do on every show, and is just as a activity of listening. So I always allow people to clear anything that might be distracting them. Something that they want to talk about, because I have an agenda. There's a topic that we're going to talk about, but I know sometimes there's something else there.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you want to talk about before we go right into listening and Sidewalk Talk?
I think that I've gotten a lot of Sanaz, and I have a friend in the room. You can't see her, but I slept in her house last night, and she's a Sidewalk Talk city leader for LA. And this morning we were talking about what is the difference between listening to your intuition versus neuroses? Like, how can you tell if, this gut reaction that you're getting to someone is actually an intuitive response versus sort of a neurotic response that you shouldn't be having? And I think I answered the question, but I still can feel myself I'm feeling better in connection with you. Yay. But I said to Sanaz, what do you think? How would you distinguish between your neurotic energy versus your intuitive energy? And when is the narrative being made up and completely manufactured? And I had some of that going on a little bit, and we sunk in and thought, okay, so intuitive energy is slow and thick, and neurotic energy is fast and so I'm like, okay, so I probably just need to slow down and then check that out. I like that story. I'm like, okay.
I like that. That's really helpful to me right now. I find myself making decisions around the intuition of discomfort around relating and communication, or allowing people, and that doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
So that's a helpful distinction. And I tend to go, okay, take it a little bit slower, don't be quick, and then see what's there, but then do something. Like the challenge sometimes I find in going slow is like you're too far in it, and then it's going to be so uncomfortable to kind of course correct.
Yeah.
that creates a whole nother situation. But I like the idea. I like how you just described that.
Yeah. So I'm in the moment, just aware of slowing myself down so that I'm more in touch with, my authenticity rather than my neuroses.
I got it. I can relate to that. All right. Well, then, with that being said, tell me about Sidewalk Talk. What was the inspiration behind the project?
Yeah. I wish that I could say that I had this grand gesture to help the world initially. I actually felt really hurt by the uptick in gun violence, and I didn't feel like another sort of theoretical, intellectual analysis of our culture and what was going on in it was going to be any addition to the conversation, especially because I'm a white upper middle class person. I don't understand the experience of other people that live in different communities or are from different backgrounds, but I felt a need to do something. And I wish I could say that it was really thought out. It wasn't. I just started obsessing. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. And I started obsessing about getting my big leather therapist chair in the elevator and getting it down on the sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, wow, this is a really weird thing that I keep like spinning about, you know? And it stuck with me long enough that I actually put an email out to a bunch of the writers that write for Psyched magazine, and another therapist said, I'll do that with you. And so we got 28 therapists all on the same day to go sit out on a sidewalk to listen. And there were really two motivations. I think on the one hand, we really wanted therapists to be visible in the community, because we're not, you know, hidden away. We're real people. We're really relatable. And we wanted people to have a felt sense of that. But for me, it also had this activism component to it, which is, I just want to understand. I just want to listen. I don't want to preach or lecture to anybody about why this is happening. I just want to hear. And 2.5 years later, here we are.
I can relate to that too. I think there's too much of people telling people what they should feel or believe, and I definitely don't want to give unsolicited advice. Like, I don't think we need more people writing top 10 tips to do this or that. Why text him back? Why, you know, like, I don't think we need more of that. I think we need more of actually authentic feeling each other and feeling the connection, feeling what's already there. Like the ability to connect and reason and understand and love, like those things. So, you know, what does that look like? It's a simplified thing, because there's simplified wiring there. Like, how do we get back to sort of the basics is what it feels like. So I can totally connect to that. Like feeling that it doesn't have to be so thought out. It's just like, go do something. Go start something. All right. Well, so, you know, there's a lot of studies. So I talked about social anxiety in the monologue, and some studies are saying one in every 3 people in America are feeling some sort of social anxiety. Do you agree with that? What do you think is the cause?
Well, you know, I tend to say something to clients that I work with. I always love thinking about attachment research, and I like to simplify everything back down to the baby. Okay, and what do babies need when they're anxious or they're worked up? They need touch, tone, and eye contact. Touch, tone, and eye contact. Touch, tone, and eye contact. Now, if we were to think about that for a minute, how much are we doing that in our culture today?
Yeah, not at all.
At all.
No. Well, we're touching the phone when we text. I got that.
That's not exactly what I was talking about.
I know, but we got touchdown. I'm just kidding. I know it's not what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I get so much out of sidewalk talk. I would like to, when I'm out there on the street, my favorite part is that I'm not a therapist when I'm sitting out there. I'm not there to help people. And my favorite part is saying, do you want a hug? At the end.
Yeah.
You know, and I can tell some of the people that we exchange hugs with. I don't care, you know, what walk of life they're from. Some of them haven't been touched in a really long time.
Yeah.
And so if we're not building a community that builds in the basic ingredients for what soothes our nervous system, then we're actually not creating a community that's well. You know?
Right. I imagine I'm just going to be doing this the whole. I understand, Traci. I connect with this. I knew even in emails, we've never met. For people that are listening or watching, we've never met. We've actually never heard each other's voices or looked at each other's eyes before. But even just in the email exchange, like the extra stuff you mentioned one time, I'm really excited you're on top of this, or I'm glad that you're on top of this, and like, she's paying attention, like she's getting this connection thing, like she's doing it. What I'm talking about, like, you know, just that little extra, like, I see you, girl, you know, like, which we need.
Thanks for noticing that I noticed.
Thank you for noticing. Yeah, we need that. I couldn't agree more. I do know people that, you know, that are not getting touched enough. I'm one of them sometimes. I mean, I run a business that is made up of a lot of freelancers. We're not in the same office together. You know, independent, single living, like it just, at some point, you're like, oh, you know, I need to get out.
And you forget that you need it.
Yeah.
Like, it's as important to our survival as like the sunlight.
And we've forgotten it, and having the courage to say it's okay to need it. That's the other part, because we live in a self-promoting sort of, look at my highlight roll on Instagram, look at all my beautiful, perfect, retouched photos of how great my life is, you know. the idea of saying you need something or being vulnerable in any way is not promoted right now.
Yeah.
So there's that. You know.
Well, I also think it's particularly difficult for women because one thing that's different between men and women is that when women have a nervous system that's gotten rattled, and I don't want to say this is across the board, but from a neurobiological standpoint, women tend and befriend. We tend to want to reach out for connection, yet everything in our culture is, I call it the sickness of pathological American independence.
I like that.
I even think psychology 20 years ago got on this bandwagon because I think the codependence movement went way too far. I love the teachings of codependence, but what it seemed to do is for a lot of years, it really didn't teach healthy interdependence, which is what we as human animals need. And it perpetuated this mythology of this pathological independence. And then when we're showing up in relationship, we feel like we can, I did a thing I'm going to get angry now.
Go for it. Yeah, that's the other thing. We're not allowed to be angry sometimes as women, but we need to, we need to show that. Yeah.
Because there are huge consequences.
Yeah.
This idea of toxic people, this was on the cover of Psychology Today magazine last month, and of course they chose the picture of a woman on the cover and put toxic across her mouth.
Nice.
And I'm like, that's really tone deaf, man.
Yeah.
That's like not cool. And I think that what happens is we actually don't understand as human animals how to be in relationship to people when they're having a difficult experience, because we don't understand how to manage our own energetic boundaries when somebody is anxious. And so we call them toxic. We label them. But people that are anxious are often highly sensitive people who are bringing back jewels from the depths for the rest of us. And boy, are we missing out when we write them off. And it's hurtful.
Yes, it's hurtful. And there's always, I know recently there's somebody that feels this way about me, that I'm toxic because I brought something up. I might have brought it up too late because I was leaned at, and now they have this very strong, opinion about you're talking about relating. That was horrible for me, horrible, everything, that happened in this situation. I'm like, well, but the thing is, my experience matters too, number one. And two, actually, there was an opportunity for us to really heal and relate and get around it. And there would be new information that we both had that would have been helpful as humans to have and move forward. But the idea of when you get into the situation of debating, you're not relating, and there's really no chance for that opportunity of growth to happen from that. And that's unfortunate. Those hard disconnects before you've given somebody a chance. Now that's not saying you'll have, I'm sure, more to say about this. Yeah, there are some people that you can't get there with, and it's not just on them. They shouldn't be labeled toxic. It's something between the two of you is just not working, and it might not ever be. And you've got to be able to, when to realize okay, it's best for us to, to disconnect on a more permanent basis.
Yeah.
There's a lot to manage and all of that. We're complex.
Yeah.
But we have some similar and simple needs, and it's how we work together to get to that is, the joys of life and relating.
Well, it sounds like you really put yourself out there to try to get into right relationship with this person. Yeah. And that's so vulnerable to be the initiator of those conversations, and you extend your hand, and then it's just left there empty and or slapped by a name call.
Well, the other thing that I'm learning, so I like the part of me and the person that I am that's vulnerable. I identify with it. I'm a little bit of an extremist. I know that I've learned from this. I don't have people in my life that have done this much, especially my family, that I'm okay with kind of being uncomfortable for a little bit. I always call it it's like being naked. You're only naked for a little bit, and then you can't get more naked. It's I'll learn. I know something will come up on the other side, but what I'm experiencing right now, or what I'm aware of, is that many people find vulnerability as weakness, and then when you go and shift the game, where you're now the game changer, going, this is not okay. It's more of a situation because they've perceived you as weak already, and now you've changed it, and they weren't respecting you as someone in authority or of strength, and it's how dare you, weak person, change the game on me, strong person. And so then there's like even more of a blow up that is the result of that situation. I'm like,
So there's already this predefined power dynamic.
Totally. Which I don't even care. I like, and I don't, I don't know if I'm unique in this. I think that lots of people are experiencing this, and women especially. Like I don't really care about power right now. I'm so focused on relating and connecting and what does that look and feel like, and how can I be a better friend, and how can I be a better family member. That other side of like who's in power to me says that someone has to win and then there's someone that's losing. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in relating. Yeah. And nobody loses in relating.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, it's different. It's different. So it's interesting. I am my own social experiment in many cases. Like the things that I'm learning and putting out, I'm going through at the same time and go, hey, let's try something different. Let's see if we can do this. And I don't know any better than anybody, but I'm willing to put myself out there to create a better situation for a group of people or other people. So
well, it sounds like human relating is the cause. It is the thing.
It is the thing. Yeah. It is.
Which is why we like each other.
Yeah, I know. I know. So what else can we? So we talked about social anxieties. We've talked about being out of practice. Like people are just a little bit out of practice because they're not getting the touch, the eye contact, and all of these things. One of the things that I read on your website, and I'm just going to read it word for word, which I really related to, was the statement, we think the first step in listening is stopping what one is doing and being intentional. We think sitting and saying to one's body, it's okay to slow down and sit down and feel supported for change. I love this. I know what intentional listening looks like, but can you explain that? Can we talk about just being intentional with our communication and why that's important?
Well, I want to make a disclaimer here because, I tweeted this out on social media and people that know me will be watching this. I teach what's really hard for me. Yeah. So, and maybe that's why I'm a good teacher of this stuff, because the slowing down bit I have not mastered yet. But what's begun to happen over the last 2.5 years is, because Sidewalk Talk, I've now been sitting out on the street we started planning it 2.5 years ago, so 2 years. I didn't realize it was so pleasurable to slow down. I think that everything in our culture is about output. Mm-hmm. As you'd said at the top of our talk, we're self-promoting, we've got our reel, we're constantly putting out there. Mm-hmm. And that is prized in our society. And I'm an extrovert, so I think inadvertently, and yet oddly, a lot of my close friends are introverted. Mm-hmm. And what they've taught me, and what I've learned from Sidewalk Talk that I had no idea about, is that when we slow down and we calm our body and we actually get into a receptive mode, mm-hmm. it's not about being a good person. It's just freaking pleasurable. It feels good. The reward is of itself, but we don't do it because I think we have this a little bit of anxiety and fear mm-hmm. that's being sort of driven by this cultural message that you need to constantly be productive, you need to constantly output. Yeah. That keeps us in that neurotic frame of mind.
It's consumerism too. I mean, it's like this constant buy this to feel this, which is so anti how we're wired. We're actually wired for connection. We're wired to feel and look and, and
you're going to love this. I just gave a talk at SF State a few weeks ago, and I love this book. It's really geeky. I love geeky science stuff. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, I'm into it.
It's called A Cultural History of Psychotherapy in America. So it kind of talks about, because psychotherapy changes a lot. It's called Constructing the Self, Constructing America, A Cultural History of Psychotherapy. It's a really long. But you don't need to buy it because I'm going to tell you the cliff notes right now. Okay. Basically, when Freud's ideas first came out, his fundamental belief was that there was a psychosexual wound that was driving hysteria. Mm-hmm. But American culture has taken some of those tenets, and we actually believe in the wound for the way that we've developed psychotherapy is the empty self. Okay? And so what this psychologist was saying is, when you have a wound of the empty self, then there are only two people in our culture that have the answer for the empty self: therapists and marketers.
Wow.
Because we're trying to fill
it. Yep.
that hole. And so whatever somebody's selling, we're buying.
Yeah.
And you got to think about all the things that where we're getting marketing from. We're getting marketing from our politicians. We're getting marketing from our doctors. We're getting marketing from psychotherapists. We're getting marketing from consumer products.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it is an industry. And, you know, Freud's, a member of Freud's family was the person who was the original inventor of public relations, entirely based on psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
And the unconscious.
That's amazing.
So, you know, when you think about the empty self and you think about filling up holes, this is sort of beneath why we're constantly like going out all the time, because we don't want to feel that, right? But we actually leave ourselves open to making some interesting choices around people, products, you know, because we just want to stay avoidant of that thing. And I don't know. I think listening and human connection is the antidote. We're not empty if we can feel a sense of belonging and connection with other people.
Well, and
I gotta say, I feel a little anxious because I got really geeky there for a second.
it's okay.
So.
I was following you in your geekness, which says a lot about me.
Oh,
I'm
God, Traci, did you really have to
No.
go there?
No, there's a lot that's coming up for me in this. Like, just in where we started about this intentional thing of sitting across from each other and like having your full body going, I'm ready to receive, and looking at somebody. There's also an implied, I'm full. Like, I'm going to let you see me. We're coming already with everything that we
good
have.
When you just said that. Can you say that again?
Yeah, we're full. Like it's when you're
Yeah.
intentionally sitting in front of someone and allowing them to be seen. Like, you're not asking for anything else outside, so you don't need to fill these holes with like, you know, get me a smoothie or or a face cream or whatever the case may be. It's like, I'm showing up. You're letting me be seen. This is a full experience for me. There's nothing more that I need right now in this moment. And
I just love that. I'm so glad you said that.
I witnessed it. I was talking before we started the show. I do these events at this local nonprofit called the Relational Center, and once we go through a sequence of things to kind of clear the room from the distractions, everything that's pulling you, I take the phones away from everybody. Like, I mean, we just like we go there. I'm like, and we get to a point where the room is warmed up. There's some people have shared what they're grateful for. We've practiced complimenting. These are strangers mostly, so they have to really go with, I like that you wore pink plants, just to kind of warm it up. And then we get to this point where we're like, I sense this about you. I encourage them to kind of go out and say something. And it is unbelievable the types of things that are said that are meaningful, that the person receiving is going, I so needed to hear that. Like, how did you know? And like, they're amazed that we're all, everybody's turned psychic in the room. I'm like, no, it's just that simple. Like, that we can feel full just by an interaction like that, just by showing up and allowing ourselves to be full with what we have in that moment and letting somebody see us that way.
Yeah.
And it's, I have dreams of doing this with like big groups of people and, communities where we're all feeling at the same time. Like, imagine.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So then what ultimately do you think makes us feel full then? Is it the connection, or do we come to the connection feeling full?
I think, and you know more,
No.
I think it's just allowing the identity of you to be seen, just to have that reflected back in somebody and like let that be okay. Like, not saying it's this or that. It's just like, I'm just who I am right now.
Yeah.
And like, just being honest about that. There's
Yeah.
something so beautiful and simple about, you just got it. Like, you see me right now, and I am just lit because you see exactly who I am.
So I'm really hearing you say self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Like, really fully unabashed self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Just like, this is
who
who I
got.
am and where I am right now.
Yeah.
Boy, am I getting that message in spades lately. So
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about more the experience in the talks, or
Okay.
not talks, at Sidewalk Talk. What are people is there a theme to what they sit down and want to talk about? Is there some generalizations of like the topics? What are people talking about? What are they concerned about?
Yeah, it's varied. But I do feel like people in general are surprised at how few people they have to talk to. So if there were a theme, it's that they are not often feeling met or seen. And they're a little shocked and grateful and touched and surprised all at once. And then usually, as their story unfolds, the conversation drifts into a space of, wow, I actually don't have people that listen to me like this, that really make space for who I am and where I am. People usually interrupt. They'll me too the conversation and make it about them.
That reminds me of the time when.
And then it just quickly goes back to them. I mean, a little bit of that helps the other person feel like you're in sync, but you know, there's a fine line right there.
Yeah.
And then there's this, you know, I say that I think it's particularly hard for therapists that come out and volunteer, because now half our volunteers are not therapists. Anybody can volunteer. We do an online training. But therapists are so caught up in helping. Yeah. But sometimes helping, you know, I am actually aware that I feel guilty now because I gave you advice when I walked in the room, and I never do that. I said, but I did tell you I was doing it before I did. I'm going to give you some advice. But that advice giving, it ultimately sets up a power dynamic that says, I'm the knower about what you should be doing with your life. And I think for sure, I do not want to minimize the work that therapists do in their training. I mean, it took me 6.5 years to get licensed in the state of California. But what I do want to say is that there is another way of listening that we can all learn how to do collectively that is about deeply honoring the intelligence inside of people. And what I have learned is that when I actually step out of the role of needing to help someone, you know, I actually discover wisdom that I wouldn't have even come up with if I'd given them advice. Second, my need to help someone is sometimes driven by my own anxiety or poor boundaries, because I just simply can't tolerate their emotions. And I think that's a pandemic.
It's very honest.
But I think that's a cultural problem. I think that's why I think I'm going to use a geeky term, but we're affect avoidant in this culture. We just don't want to feel too much. We kind of want to feel a lot of pleasure. We don't want to feel anything else. And along the lines of your message of self-acceptance, I believe, means that we're open to the full range of our experience, and then we feel full when we are.
Yeah. I love that. What's coming up for me when you're sharing that is I have a new friend that admitted recently that she's attempted suicide recently. You know, and it's really painful. And I know some of her situations. She has a right to feel pain. Like, and she told me, and she is a very smart person. Like she's very smart. And she told me, she's like, I don't need you to give me advice. And I was like, thank you for telling me that. Like, thank you for checking me. Like, thank you for helping me be the best friend that I can be to you right now, you know. And it's cool that you're doing that. Like, we're gonna go somewhere with this because you're telling me, you know, how I can support you. And I think, and there's so much, like, and I wouldn't discount therapist work either, because there's work that I've done in therapy that I couldn't do anywhere else. You know, it's however you get there is how you get there, you know. And so it's very important work to have somebody helping you, but also be in relations with people that are like, they're just there to relate. They're just there to listen. I think often that's the reason we end up in therapy, because we don't have those relationships to begin with. And so when people are telling you this, when they're having these realizations on the street, on a sidewalk, that, wow, that felt so good, and I don't have people in my life, is there any advice that you can give them to, like, say, okay, this is some steps that you can take to have them, you know, now that they've revealed a problem? Essentially. I don't give a lot of advice, but what I said something really interesting to someone on the street yesterday. I listened to him for a really long time, and I could tell he would have stayed longer, and I wanted to set a boundary because there were other folks that wanted to be listened to. And so the way I closed the session, I said to him, so what has it felt like to be listened to today? Because I think it was hard for him in his monologue a little bit to totally take me in and feel me there. So I would keep checking in with him to bring him back that there was actually a real
person over here listening to him. And I could see it in his eyes that he would take little sips of me here and there, you know, just little sips. And towards the end, he said, yeah, it's just felt really good. I have so many problems. I could just talk forever. And I said, yeah. And I said, and I would invite you to, it sounds like you really would like there to be more people to listen to you. And one of the ways that we can begin to have an impact is to also become a listener.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of selling to the people that sit down to join us in the project when they're done, and say, you should volunteer with us and become a listener.
I love that.
So that's usually my closing remark is, if this felt really good to you, then get on this train and let's change the culture together.
It's true in anything that we want in our life, right? If we want more of it coming our way, then we have to have more of it to give and put out. We talk about love this way. You know, you can't really experience love without having some love for yourself. So I love this idea of getting them, excited about being a good listener.
Yep, and everybody's welcome. You know, we have in San Francisco, we have a few folks that live on the streets that volunteer with us. Like, everybody's included if they're of sound mind, and they can offer empathic listening. And the community on the back end, you know, a fundamental core principle is that we practice between each other what we do out on the street. So right relationship, and don't get me wrong, we fumble and we're learning how to set, I mean, there's also this thing about boundaries. We also have to say, you know, no, I can't listen right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the psychic space to listen to you right now. But the inclusivity is a foundational piece of the community that we've built, and we're now 700 volunteers strong, and it's not a one-stop deal. You don't just go out and hold a free sign. We're actually having empathy circles with one another regularly. The community itself is an inclusive community that practices all the things that you're doing, Stephanie, with Relatable.
Thank you. The next show is going to be all about empathy with one of my friends from the Relational Center. And what's coming up when you were sharing that is it's so important. Even when you're doing this work, you can't just do the work and not have some support system that continues to fill you up so you can put yourself in a position to do that work. So we're talking a lot about that. Like, what does that support system look like? How do we practice it amongst each other? We can't just keep putting it out, you know. So it's really important to have that in the process of what you're putting out there, so you can continue to show up in a way that's like from a point of wellness, because we can run ourselves dry. We can run all the energy out of us. And we live in a society that's telling us to keep doing. So it's important to have people that will say, slow down. Slow down.
I had a really funny thing happen last week relative to this, because I forget this all the time. And I almost proved my own dogma in a way. I was really crabby at the beginning of the week, and it was like a little monster crawled inside my chest. I didn't even have a narrative. It's just like this little monster, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know, and there were some snaggly, annoying things happening, but nothing huge and dramatic that would warrant a monster living in my chest for 3 days. I'm like, all right. And then I reached out to one of the Sidewalk Talk, the Maisha Hill. Hi, Maisha. I said, hey, would you be willing to have an empathy circle with me? It's and that's Edwin Rutsch from the Culture of Empathy. You should have him on the show. He has taught me his methodology, which is called an empathy circle, where you do 5-minute listening exchanges, and you respond empathically. And we do it in a group setting online with our Sidewalk Talk leaders as a way to bond. But sometimes when there's tension or conflict between members of Sidewalk Talk, we'll have one-on-one empathy circles, and this is how we handle things. And now we're looking at using this to actually build out our organization, as we're going to do human-centered design and do our entire build-out using this. So I called Maisha on the phone, and we did an exchange. We did 20 minutes each. And she actually talked first. And in holding space for her, I realized what had been happening for me. I had been feeling lonely for 3 days. I had been so productive, but I hadn't really had real, authentic human connection. So I hadn't even said a word yet. And I just when it was my turn to go, I said, oh my God, this shit really, can I say that?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
This shit really works. Like I went, oh, I have been lonely. I haven't actually been in connection with anyone.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about social anxiety at the top, and sometimes I think that can be a way that I manage my anxiety, is I can hide out in my productivity and not
relate to
connect.
that.
Yeah.
She's like looking into my soul and revealing all my things. Like, yeah, I can totally relate to that.
You know what's been really nice about Edwin's empathy circle model is that it's structured. And so for anyone that's a little bit anxious, it feels a little less scary because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Because unstructured, vulnerable communication can feel a little scary. But when it's really tightly held and it's structured, it doesn't feel as scary.
I believe in that. I like Carvel Hendricks' work, Getting the Love That You Want, and now their new work around safe communication. Him and his wife Helen Hunt. But the structured dialogue that he talks about, I love mirroring. I think it's a great tool. It's a great active listening tool to go, okay, let me repeat back to you what I think I heard you say, because even how we hear things is not how someone said things or like what they meant by it, and checking in helps you move, forward with whatever that conversation, that story is, and then there is more of a connection that's happening. So I think structure creates safety, and ultimately if we're not practicing communication, it must feel really unsafe for people to have someone come to them and go, we need to talk. It's like, I don't know what is that, what's going to come up in this? Like, it just creates anxiety without the practice.
Well, so, my specialty is working with couples. And I love Harville Hendricks. So I use some of his material, and couples complain. They're like, this feels so dry and technique-y. And I said, yes, it's going to in the beginning. But what it is providing is safety. And so I tell them, here's the process for adopting Harville stuff. It's going to start with, number one, it's a skill.
Yeah.
You're going to feel the technique.
Yeah.
Then number two, you're going to start to open, and you're going to start to feel yourself caring. So first it's going to be technique, then it's going to be care, and then it'll be full-blown empathy. So you're just going to have to practice it till we get all the way down to the empathy. But for a while, it's going to need to be gradual.
Like exercising our bodies. First, it's like just an exercise you don't want to do. Right? Like, I don't want to get up.
Emotional weightlifting. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to do this. Right. Then you start seeing the little tone come in your arm, like, ew. It's like the muscle is the empathy, in this case.
Well, this is the other piece. I really do not like the good girl, good boy stuff. I don't want anyone to do anything to be a good person. I know it sounds really weird.
No, it's hard.
When you learn these skills, it feels good. That should be your motivation. I'm not interested in preaching to anyone about how they should be.
I get that. So how I would repeat this back to you, what I'm hearing, it's like, you shouldn't do anything just because you're thinking you're going to be a better person by doing it. Like, the result of this kind of work is you actually feel better. You do better with each other. Like, it actually feels better.
Yes.
It's not about you doing it because it's the right thing to do. That should not be the motivation.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I like it. All right.
We're getting all excited.
I know, we're getting all excited, and we're like rounding close to the end of the hour. So I definitely want to put out some just listening tips for people that are listening and watching. What could you, if you know you would like to be a better listener, what are some, like, maybe top 3 or 4
Well, I'm going to give
practice?
a plug for something that we give away for free. Sidewalk Talk is all is 100% volunteer nonprofit. So we give away these books called Let's Listen.
Yay!
And you just download it on your iPad and just give it away, and it has listening tips in it. And it has the empathy circle format, and it was written by 6 of us. Mary Goyer, who is an executive coach, and she wrote a great book on empathy. Cara Hills, a psychotherapist. Dr. Greg Madison, who did the World Day of Listening in Europe. And then Edwin Retch from the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And Rosa Zubizarreta, she's an organizational development consultant. But it's layman's terms. There's no psychobabble, no preachy, nothing. It's just really about how can you put this into practice.
Perfect. I will share a link to that on my site so people can go and download it too.
Yeah,
so we'll make sure we get that in everybody's hands.
So first we talked about, so I'm just going to cover the main steps that we covered. We were just on a bus tour, I should say this. we gave these away. We just did a bus tour through the South. Just got back 2 weeks ago.
Were you in Texas?
I wasn't in Texas, so actually wasn't totally. We started in Chicago, then we went to Indianapolis, then we went to Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky.
They do will correct you to say that wrong.
Birmingham, Alabama, and then Nashville, Tennessee, and then Atlanta, Georgia. And we were hoping us listeners from the San Francisco Bay Area would meet folks that were different than us, because it's a totally different area.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we taught these listening tips along the way. We would hold free public listening training for anyone that wanted to come. The first was that this intentional thing. You have to decide to listen. You know, when I'm on the fly, I don't just listen like this all the time. It's a total decision. I have to decide. I am going to listen this way. So I like to tell people that, because they hear this stuff and think, I have to do that all the time. And I'm like, no, do it 5% of the time. Then 10% of the time. Change happens incrementally, and no, you don't do it all the time, but you decide. Second, you have to regulate your nervous system. You have to stay calm and slow. So all the things that you do when you stay slow, like even now as I'm talking to you, what I've been doing to not get anxious is I've been trying to stay with your eyes, because eye contact keeps me calm. And then when I'm moving my body, I could like flail right now, but I'm actually intentionally trying to move my hands slower than maybe my energy wants to. So I'm actually almost what feels like moving in slow motion to me.
I got it.
And I'm slowing my breath down the entire time I'm hanging out with you, so that otherwise I'd be like this. Third, and this one's hard, but this one's had the hugest impact on my life. I no longer spend a bunch of mental energy trying to create a narrative in my mind about who this person is when they're speaking and their terrible intentions of trying to harm me. Just
That's
like
so important.
not
or drawing a
interested.
conclusion of where they're going. Yeah, it's so important.
I am not interested. It's way more emotional labor than I'm interested in doing for people. Again, this isn't about being a good person. This is about also you having a boundary too. Because when you start assuming what's going on for people, and I still struggle with this one, but I'm working on it so earnestly, you actually are less tired. You just don't spend as much energy emotionally taking care of the situation. So don't assume bad intentions. Be curious.
It's my favorite one.
Curiosity, so fun.
I know, I love it.
So fun. Make eye contact. Eye contact is very cultural, but I was more getting at put your phone down. Put it away, down, away. For some people, you actually can get more conversation side by side. But I think what I mean is no distractions. Have the conversation be the driving force. But if eye contact is too intimate and makes you anxious, you don't need to do eye contact. Just please put your phone down.
Totally.
Don't interrupt. Hard to do when you're anxious. Sometimes we just, I get that talking thing. And so, but just try to, I say to people, I said, close your lips and just smile. Just zip it, like they taught us in elementary school. And then just to remind people that you're not adding to the story, you're a sounding board. So just be the sounding board, reflect back. And the more that you do that, again, the less labor you're doing for the other person. It's way easier to listen when you don't feel the burden of solving somebody's problem. You're trusting that they have all the answers. So it's so fun to listen that way. You're like, oh my God, I just get to know you.
Yeah. I love it.
So that's it. Those are my
That's
tips.
it. All right, we're going to share that. So we've got like less than 10 minutes, and I want to get everything in.
Oh, there's more.
I
okay.
know. All right. So
I thought we had tons of time, but
I know.
Sounds like
it feels like that, right? You know it's good. You know you're relating well when you're like, I could do this forever. I love it. All right. So I like to prove a point that like at any given time, the circumstances of how we're relating can change. And then also there's always more information available. So like when some of what you were saying, when we draw these assumptions and things and you know, without knowing all the details, it's like you just cut yourself out from learning more of that. There's always more information available. So one of the ways that I demonstrated on the show is just to ask you an off-topic question. It's usually quite silly, and then we'll learn more about Traci.
Okay.
And not usually. They're very.
I will try very hard not
silly.
to go to my 15-year-old boy self.
Well, I can't. Well, it's funny that you say that because the question was boxers or brief or nothing at all. So you were putting it out there, and that's what we got.
Boxers.
Boxers. All right. Should we reveal that that's what your husband wears?
Like, boxers.
Yeah. Okay, this is a fun one to ask the therapist. Do you believe in ESP?
I believe that we all have ESP. Extra sensory perception, but we're not embodied enough to feel it.
Yeah.
We're usually walking around with all of the energy from our neck up.
Yeah.
But I think that the ultimate act of ESP isn't that we're some magical person. It's that we're so embodied that we can feel all of the sensory input that's coming into us. So I think we all have the capacity.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it like there's different things that even happen in your body. I'm notorious for being too much in my head and like, oh, I have a body. What's going on with it? You know, like, oh, there's pain here because I've been sitting like this at the computer. And it's amazing when you are fully walking around present and feeling, you know, what's in there to like you have different experiences when you're more aware.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, well, we'll move on to heart swells. Let me tell you what we do here at the end of each show is obviously, you know, that I believe in connecting and relating. And I like this idea of just demonstrating, you know, deep desires as a way to just show it's less scary. As a way to just raise the level of empathy in the world. We all have deep desires and deep connections to people, and then the more we articulate that, I think that it makes it easier for other people to do their own type of heart swell.
Yeah.
So what I would ask Traci is if think of something that you really desire or something that's really important to you and attach that, or think of a person associated with that, and just look at the camera and say something to them. Maybe it's a tribute, a new commitment, just tell them that you love them, how important they are. Sometimes it's an act of forgiveness, like whatever comes up, but tell somebody how you feel about them.
Good Lord, there's so many people.
You could do it, you know.
I should have thought about a little bit,
well,
but I think I have one.
You have one? Okay.
I have one. Yeah.
All right.
Aw. This is going to be, well, I don't care what anyone thinks because I'm going to be my eye right now.
Yeah.
So this is to my 9-year-old son. So Leif, I just want you to know that I really honor who you are. And sometimes I feel like I'm not great at showing that. But I see you, and you have taught me more than any human being on the planet. And yeah, you actually make me accept parts of myself that I have a hard time accepting. That's what you teach me. And there are certain ways that I think I'm growing because you're in my life, and if you weren't, I wouldn't. So I want to say that I love you, and you're one of my favorite people.
I love that. Our guest in the studio is crying, and I feel that too. I love it when parents say something to children. We've had a couple heart swells like that that are really meaningful. So I love hearing that. I could do this for so much longer. Probably have to have you come back, and one of the colleagues that you mentioned, that would be great. I can't talk about empathy enough, so I will definitely be asking for those resources after the show. And the books that Traci's mentioned, and certainly the tips in the Sidewalk Talk guide, I will be sharing links for everybody to get in contact with those things. So,
and if folks want to volunteer, it's a really lovely community. And there isn't a minimum requirement to how often you know, we ask folks to buy a t-shirt, and then you take an online training and you come out just when you can. And it's a sweet, inclusive community.
I love it. All right. So hear that. Sidewalk Talk, volunteer. We need volunteers in different cities. And you can go to the website Sidewalk Talk SF for San Francisco, because that's where it was founded.
Or it's sidewalk-talk.org.
I'll share both of those links. You can look at what cities they're going to be in. And if it's not in your city, maybe you're one of the volunteers that helps to bring it to your city. So don't let that be a barrier to participate in the project. So I thank you. That brings us to the close of the show. I like the idea of issuing a challenge at the end of each show. And I think there's some things around active listening that we could be thinking about. So we've talked before about, we had this challenge of like, think of somebody you want to reconnect with and call them up and go, let's do this reconnection project. Let's have like 5-minute calls in 10 days. You know, do that. Like some amazing things have happened from the connections that I've done this with, and I've heard some great things from other people. But in doing that, you know, challenge yourself to be a better listener. Practice this thing called mirroring, which is basically just repeating back what someone says and then maybe asking a question. Did I hear all that? Is there more to it? What else do I need to know about this? So try that. I'd love to hear about that. So reach out to me at Love More Now on Twitter or Instagram, Relate with Steph. As always, I've got a new resource on my site that will tell the backstory between the guest and I. All of the resources, books, and things that we share will be there tomorrow, day after the show. So go to stephaniemichele.com to see that. And next week, as I mentioned, Dan from the Relational Center will be here. We're going to be talking about empathy. The whole hour will be dedicated to empathy.
I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, I'm excited about this too. Dan and I are good friends too, so you'll see that kind of relating happening as well. And then my next PSE, Public Shared Experience, at the Relational Center is Wednesday, the 24th, Wednesday, May 24th at 7 p.m. We usually do them on Sundays. We're trying something new. And as you recall, all this is it's like a yoga class for relating. It's like an experience where you're going to feel good relating. Not the fast food relating that we've kind of come used to, but just this experience of really connecting and relating with each other. And I'd love to see everybody there for that. In the meantime, I'm still working on a closing tag. Maybe Traci, he'll have some opinions on that. But as of right now, I'm just going to encourage everybody to explore relating with more curiosity.
Listening feels good.
And listening feels good. That's it. So I'll see you next Tuesday.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.